Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And I was just down in Orlando the last 3 days, and I'm glad to be back in Alpharetta. I can tell you that. This is the place to do business, folks, in not just Georgia, but in the Southeast, or even wider than that. But anyway, I'm biased for a good reason. Hey, folks, speaking of banks in Alpharetta, I'm sitting again inside Renaissance Bank, and if you're looking for a bank that is big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them, but they're small enough to deliver that service that they offer you in a personal way, I think Renaissance is a great example, and from my experience, of being able to hold those two ways of doing business together. Not many banks can do that. I think Renaissance can. So if you're looking for that kind of magic combination, go to renaissancebank.com and find one of their local offices and give them a call. I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome my friend Andy Kalajian. Andy is with Fort Leadership and Sales Consulting. Andy, welcome back.
Good morning, John. It's an honor and a privilege to be back with you. I think this might be number 4 or 5. I don't know, but over the years. But so thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always fun to have you, so that's why I keep inviting you back. So thank you for that. And you've always got some great insights for our audience. So we appreciate that, and I'm sure it'll be the same this time. But for those that have not heard any of those previous episodes and don't know you, let's give a little introduction to you and your work.
Sure. Well, thank you for that opportunity. So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. At the very young age of 9 years old, I discovered my purpose and my passion in my life was to serve other people. I got into Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, and Boy Scouts with my dad and my brother. I wanted to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. There was sort of a curriculum out there lined out for me to go and achieve. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go to a scout camp out in New Mexico. And my parents said, this was 1974, and they said, you could go, you just have to pay for it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm making 25 cents a week of allowance with my dad, and there was no way I could raise the $350 I needed to go all the way from Detroit to New Mexico for the scout camp. And so I became a golf caddy. I carried the bag at a country club, and I made $5 a day, was able to raise the funds that I needed. I went to the Philmont Scout Ranch in 75 and later again in 77. It was an awesome trip. Mm-hmm. Shot the Colorado River, stayed at the Rocky Mountain National Park, Moab, Utah, and Arches, and came back. It was a 3-week Odyssey trip both times, and it was awesome. Got my Eagle Scout, and while I was at the golf course, I earned an opportunity to earn a golf caddy scholarship. So if you've ever seen the movie Caddyshack, I actually got that scholarship and took that scholarship on to Michigan State University, studied there 5 years in medical technology is what was my degree in medical technology. I wanted to be a dentist. I thought that the best way for me to serve people and help other people would be in medicine. I selected the opportunity to go to Michigan State, study medical technology, and go on to dental school. So anyway, 3 summers, I worked with a couple of dentists, just kind of shadowed with them, found out dentistry wasn't for me, and I packed up my car, a 67 Cutlass, as a matter of fact. Old. It was old even back then, yeah, and packed up everything in the trunk of the car, and I came down to Atlanta, Georgia with a big dream that I was going to find success and a resume, a sport coat, $2,500 in my pocket, and got into medical device sales. I had stepped away from the dental dream, but I thought if I could take my passion and my purpose of serving other people and helping other people and couple that with my passion for science and what my dad said was my gift of gab, I put that all together and have a medical sales career. So I did that for 33 years. I was a division of Bristol Myers Squibb for 25 years. So I was in the corporate world. I was calling on orthopedic surgeons. And we were doing hip joint replacements, knee joint replacements, and putting the bones back together after trauma or disease. So it was a great career. And then 2018 came along. I got restructured out. Yep. And my wife said to me, she said, Andy, what you need to do is you got to get out of your comfort zone and you got to get into your gifted zone.
Ah.
Yeah. So message to the gentleman out there, listen to your wives.
Yeah.
So listen to your wives. So,
Right.
So I didn't even know what that meant, but she said, listen, you're gifted at speaking and teaching and coaching. That's how you've built your business when you're in medical device sales. So what you need to do is just step away from the corporate world and go do that on your own. And so I started Fort Leadership in May of 2019. And so it's just been 4 years now, and it's been an incredible journey.
That's awesome. What a great story. So a cutlass and a sport coat. That's the key to success.
That's the key. Yeah.
not just any cutlass, a 67 cutlass,
yeah,
right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right.
I love that. So let's talk about your specific work at Fort Leadership. So how do you help businesses, and what are you trying to help them achieve?
Right. So Fort Leadership is really, part of my success was that my mom handed me the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, when I was 17 years old. And that kind of ignited my passion for reading and sort of finding a curriculum that I could learn and grow from. So that book at 17, led to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill and 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by Maxwell and Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I've been just a voracious reader. Leaders are readers. I was a voracious reader my whole life and applying those principles. And that's kind of how I grew my business. So when I stepped away from that, I wanted to take that curriculum, that sort of idea, that passion for learning and growing the individual into a leadership development business where we professionally, do professional development and personal development of people and of organizations. So Fort Leadership kind of really rests on three pillars, and that is equipping leaders to create healthy corporate cultures, equipping people to drive purpose, passion, and performance, and then equipping teams in organizations with the soft skills to succeed.
Well, you're out there with a lot of different businesses, business associations, organizations. Talk about what you're seeing out there in terms of challenges that the major challenges that these organizations face today.
Right. So what I'm hearing, and my kind of lane's a little bit different. A lot of people are into process, which is very important. They're into finance, which is obviously very important.
Right.
That's not my lane. My lane is really in the people lane, focusing on the employees and the leadership of those employees. And so sort of the things that I hear all the time, are some of the things we've been hearing since COVID, right? It's really about engagement of those employees. It's about retention of those employees. It's about post-merger and acquisition, those integration of those different organizations. Every organization has sort of a different feel, a different vibe, a different leadership style that goes in there. But with a lot of the mergers and acquisitions, there's been a lot of, how do we get these people merged? And I like to really talk more about integration. And we can get into that if you'd like.
Yeah, no, let's go ahead and get into that. Say more on what you mean by that.
Yeah, so integration I think is important. As I was going on to dental school when I was in high school, I took a couple of years of Latin. So the etymology of words is important. So the word integration really comes from the Latin word integer, which means single or indivisible or whole and complete, right? So that's where the word integration comes from. It's also coincidentally where the word integrity comes from.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So a person that is of integrity is a person that whatever they think, whatever they say, whatever they believe, and whatever they do are all in alignment. The brain, the mouth, the heart, and the hands all have to be in alignment. And if we don't see that in our leadership, and maybe political leaders, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, wherever the leadership exists, if what they say and what they do are different, they're out of alignment. And
right.
We're like, there's an absence of trust there. So the word integrity, integration, and all kind of comes from that, is everybody going in the same direction for the same reason, for the same purpose. And so when you're putting organizations together, you don't really want to smush them together like two lobs of clay. You really kind of want to scramble them like eggs, where they're indivisible, they're single and they're whole, they're integrated, fully integrated, and they're going in the same direction. That's why I think integration in post-merger and acquisition sort of organizations, and you want to get your culture together, it really needs to be integrated.
So I hesitate to play word games with you because I'm going to lose, but because you've got such a knowledge of that. But it strikes me as I'm listening to you, Andy, that the word integrity, if you say like the seam on that boiler has integrity, that means it has resilience, right? So there's another little piece of that, right? When you have organizations that have those characteristics you're talking about, that are whole, that are aligned, they also have resilience because of that, right?
Right, exactly, because that integrity represents the strength, right? And that strength of that organization rests on that integrity.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I totally agree with you.
I love that. So, okay, engagement, integration of people. So those are some of the issues you're seeing, but what we seem to, I don't know if backing away is the right word or right way to phrase it, but the care and concern that seemed to be there, a lot of companies seem to have for their employees during the pandemic, and that concern around engagement, it seems to, people seem to be maybe not emphasizing that as much. Maybe that's just me. But I don't hear that as much as I was hearing that in the stream of people that come through this studio. I don't seem to be hearing that so much now as I was a few years ago. Is that something that, is that just me, or is that something you're seeing?
It's the same. We're seeing it too. I'm seeing it too. I'm hearing it too. And one of the things that is still out there is, this third thing, it's engagement, retention, post M&A integration. But then the other thing is this whole remote work.
Right.
Are we coming back? Who's coming back? Why do I have to come back? How come they don't have to come back?
Right.
And if I don't come back, and maybe I have to step away from this organization because I'm going to find an organization where I can stay remote, that's a big part of what's going on in the esprit de corps, or the spirit of the body, if you will, of people in the organization that have to come back to work. Clearly, plumbers and service people, surgeons, lots of people have to go back to work. And then there's another group that maybe can work remotely. And how do you build a level of trust when, the person that formerly occupied that cubicle next to you is no longer there? And maybe you don't feel like you're getting timely responses from that person, or maybe you wonder why they got promoted and you didn't, and you're here and there. And it sort of can foster this level of distrust in an organization that makes it a difficult workplace, maybe, and a difficult challenge, and kind of leads to some of these problems in the organization that, if left unattended, fester. And like weeds in a garden, they grow and keep going. So the gardener in the organization really needs to pay attention to what's growing there.
Yeah, and it seems to me there's a lot of misconceptions about issues of like who is engaged. It's easier to look engaged when you're when you can do performative kind of things in the office, right?
Right.
That just because somebody stays late doesn't mean they're engaged. They may be on FanDuel.com for all we know, right?
Correct.
So and I think there was some stats around people that are working at home work longer hours because there's not this separation between office and home.
Right.
Yeah. And so they if you want to talk about engagement, quote unquote, I don't know. It just seems like there's a whole lot of assumptions that we make, all of us make, that maybe aren't borne out in what the reality is.
That's right. That's right. There's an executive I know, vice president of sales for North America, and we were talking about this remote work, and he said, Andy, he says, I sort of wish they were back in the office, because he likes his people to be in the office. And it's for a major company. If I told you the company, everybody in your audience would instantly know that company and probably be working with their equipment and stuff. And but he said, if they're working from home, they are saving an hour commute in each direction. If they give me one of those hours and I give them one of those hours back, then it seems like a fair trade to me.
Ooh. Now there's a man that there's a man who sounds like he's probably got a real engaged team around him.
He does.
With that kind of attitude.
He is. He's very engaging, very inspirational, cares about his people. Absolutely. Has a healthy workplace culture. Absolutely. That's
I love that. And that's really, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is just understanding the dynamics of your own team. And because every team's different, every company's different, the work demands are different. Some things you've got to be in the office for, some things you don't really need that. Right. So, and yes, there is a thing about being together is a good thing. Depending on why you're there and what the intentions are around it, right?
Absolutely.
So just knowing that for all those things for your own self and what the unique qualities of each of those things for your own company is what you're really getting at, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's for the employee to know themselves, and it's for the management or the leadership within that organization to create that sort of culture, and then I be able to know the employee well enough, right? Where they care, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. When the leadership and the management of that organization makes the employee understand that they really care for the employee, and they can sort of say, okay, for you, we're going to make these allowances because we care about you. We care about your work-life balance. We love what you're doing. We love your output. And we're going to allow this for you. But for somebody else that maybe be one of those critical employees or somebody that has to come in, we need that person in because what they do requires them to be here on site. And so for the management leadership of the organization to know that and knows how that employee ticks and knows a little bit about what's going on in their life, is always creates a much healthier corporate culture. Yeah,
for sure. Folks, we're chatting with Andy Kalajian. Andy is the owner, president, CEO of Fort Leadership and Sales Consulting. So you've got a passion around millennials, and you've got a passion around the need of the millennial generation, if we can make a generalization, for a professional development schema or curriculum. Talk about that.
Right. So I have a passion for millennials. I love millennials. We have 4 of them. And so
in your family.
Yeah, okay. We have 4.
Okay.
And so
you're collecting them, huh?
Yeah, we're collecting them. Okay. So we've got 4 millennials, and they're all doing well. They're all educated. They're all thank God they're all out of our home, and they've all got their own places. So they're all doing well. But
That's
we do
great.
love them. We raise them, and they've all got their challenges for sure. There's none of the 4 that are just like the other one. You just love them where they're at and see them for where they can be, right?
Right.
So we love millennials, but I think it's important for leadership and management to be able to understand millennials. And the reason is that cohort. And so just to make sure we got a clear definition, the millennials were born from about 81, 82, and then came of age in 2000. So by 2000, they were turning of age. 18, right? And so when they became of age, that's how the term got applied to them, the millennials. They came of age at the millennium.
Right.
All right. So 82. So today they're 26, 27 years old to 41, 42 years old. Well, that cohort of people represents 75% of the workforce pool that employers are going to be looking for today. In 2 more years, and there's lots of different places you can, Bureau of Labor and Statistics, a lot of places you'll get that 75% of the workforce are these millennials. What's interesting about these millennials is, and I've had people ask me, so I don't get the millennials. And I'm like, what don't you get? Well, it seems to be difficult to manage, maybe a little self-absorbed. I'm a little bit troubled. I don't know what to do. Can you help us? And I always tell leadership, I said, listen, there's a few things you got to understand about these folks. They were around at the time in 1997 when we had Columbine.
Right.
They knew Columbine in 1997. In 2001, we had 9/11.
Right.
2008 and 9, we had the financial crisis. Since that time, there's this climate change, right? And whether it's man-made or not man-made, I'm not here to discuss that. But they've been seeing or feeling, understanding climate change. And then in 2020, we had COVID. So all these things have affected them because they come pouring through their cell phone and social media every minute of every day.
Right.
And they're addicted to these things. So when you begin to understand, oh my gosh, yes, I sort of got empathy towards what they've kind of had to go through on that. And then you kind of put that together with, with my kids, we always talked about, the 3 C's, right? So you got college debt, car debt, credit card debt, right? All those debts, right, that they've got. And then they've got, the difficulty of maybe getting a home mortgage today, apartment rent skyrocketing, and things of this nature have kind of raised their anxiety levels to some degree. So, as managers, as leaders in organizations, if we're hiring from that pool, we can't be so brazen to say, you just need to do it this way and you just got to get over here. And we sort of got to come to them a little bit and understand where they're coming from and then manage them, lead them in a way that demonstrates that we understand what you've gone through and how we're going to help get you acculturated to this healthy corporate culture in our organization to help you to learn and grow, because we need you to be a leader in our organization.
You're describing servant leadership.
Yes, sir.
That's really, I mean, if I had to put 2 words on what you just said, that's really what you're saying is that we in, and I'm certainly there, we in, the boomer generation, whether we want to admit this or not, we need to act as servant leaders to bring on the next generation and to understand where they're coming from. And the other thing that strikes me too about these things you recite, which some of that is hearing all that together, like you put it, is striking. But also there's been just a decline of trust in institutions generally, right? Whether they're political institutions, corporations, religious organizations. So you've had a decline of trust, kind of across the board in this over time, and that's constantly getting fed on social media. So you've got to understand where they're coming from on that point as well, right?
Absolutely.
Say more on that.
Yeah. So the whole trust, right? That whole trust factor, that's the main thing. If you were to build an organization, or you're building out your organization, or you're advancing the organization, trust is critical. You can't have it without trust. And you're absolutely right. Sort of the culture in America has undermined trust. As you were kind of going through the corporate trust, I was thinking Enron, right?
Oh yeah.
You talk about the distrust in, let's say, faith-based places, and I'm thinking of Jim and Baker or Swaggart and these different people.
Sure.
You talk about politics, and there's distrust in our politicians, and some undermining of trust in even things like the police and the Supreme Court and different things. So there's sort of
it's across the board.
It's across the board.
Yeah,
it's
we're not throwing anyone particular under the bus, because every institution's had a decline in trust, right?
Right. And because people are people. And if we don't focus on those on that character ethic, quick side there on the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm sure most of your audience has at least heard about it if they haven't read it. Some may have the book. Stephen Covey.
Okay,
yes,
for
sir.
those that don't know.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
So it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. What's interesting to note in there is the subtitle. Most people don't know the subtitle.
I don't. What is
the
it?
The subtitle it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the restoring of the character ethic.
Oh, wow.
And so it's sort of kind of hidden, but for me, having been in the Boy Scouts and the whole character and integrity drummed into my head since I was a little kid, when I read the subtitle, that's what pulled me in.
Yeah.
Restoring the character ethic.
Wow. Wow. Great stuff, Andy. So you do professional development curriculum or curricula. I'm not sure if I got my plurals right.
I think you got it right.
I may hear that from my English teaching wife later. So talk about some of that work you do, those training classes and whatnot that you put together for organizations that have a need here.
Right. So what we do at Fort Leadership is we go into the organization. We sort of wade into the mess, if you will. A lot of times what we see is a lot of, of course, the engagement, the retention, the post M&A integration of an organization, and this remote work sort of thing. When we see a lot of turnover in organizations, and the organizations, they may be highly financed, they may be well financed, they may have a great strategy, they may have a great product with a great USP, but the people just don't seem to be working together. There seems to be sort of this toxic distrust in the organization. People are siloed, they're not communicating. And it happens because of everything that we've just talked about, this sort of soup, that's coming through these cell phones for the young people today. Well, we go in and we sit down and we talk to the business owners. We find out what's going on. We sort of do a personality analysis, find out the strong skill sets and this other skill sets that can be developed with individuals. And then we make recommendations on what it would take to bring this organization to a healthy corporate culture. And what we do is we sit down face to face, right? Yeah. Eyeball to eyeball, and we get about 6 or 8 people in the organization. A lot of times it's the executive leadership team. That's where it starts,
right?
Because the boss or the owner or the department head, kind of says, hey, look, I'm not really sure that my people are actually working to the best. I got great people. They got great skills and knowledge, but I'm not sure that we're working together as a team. So we sit down together and we go through curriculums. I've got John Maxwell curriculums. I've got curriculums from Patrick Lencioni and different thought leaders, organizational development leaders, and we go through a structured curriculum. Usually it's over somewhere between a 6 and a 10-week program where we sit down for an hour and a half face-to-face at a round table, and instead of talking about being in the business, we talk about the business and talk about leadership in each person. It's interesting because while you may be working 8 to 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day with a group of people, oftentimes they don't really know that much about each other.
Isn't that striking?
It is striking because it's about relationships.
Right.
It's all about the personal relationships. I talk to people and what kind of, we're in a finance business, or we got a car mechanic business, or we whatever they may do. And you go, you don't really have that. You have a relationship business, and it's about relationship. And so it's about our ability to connect with one another. And so when you get these executives around the table for an hour and a half and they kind of put down their cell phones and they close their laptops, and we're just focused on a curriculum about tell me about you. How do you tick? Why do you think that? Why do you believe that? What are your perspectives? What other talents do you maybe have that I didn't know about? What things do you think we could do in the organization? And the magic usually comes in about week 4, because, the first couple of weeks that we go through this, people are on guard. The boss may be in the room.
That's right. They don't know what to say.
But oftentimes, the leadership says, look, you just go in there. If I'm in there, I'm going to affect people just by my presence. So I can go in there and I can ask sometimes the tough questions and get unvarnished truth, right?
Yeah.
That no one wants to tell the king he ain't wearing no clothes, right? So
Right.
I can kind of pull that out of people in an organization like this, and we can quickly get there, but it usually takes the 3rd or 4th before that magic happens.
Yeah. But it's important to get to that magic.
It is important to get to that magic. I had one organization. It was a group of millennials, and these guys are literally rocket scientists. Right now, this one happened to be remote. It was up in New Jersey, and these guys are literally rocket scientists. Graduated from Rutgers University, MBAs, and they do missile guidance systems, missiles that come out of submarines, and
Oh, wow.
and so they do work for the Department of Defense and NASA. And the first or second week we did one of these curriculums with their staff of engineers. The one guy said, "Why aren't we getting Microsoft stuff here? I mean, why aren't we getting training on? Why are we wasting our time on this leadership development stuff anyway?" But he was kind of grousing, the first couple of weeks, as he thought it was all about, skills and knowledge, getting the degree or the certification and this or that's the pathway to success. And it's not always the pathway to success. It's your ability to be able to relate with other people.
Yeah. Wow. Great words here from Andy Kalajian, folks. Fort Leadership and Sales Consulting. So, Andy, as we kind of wrap up here, I'd love to hear a success story of that. It really helps folks understand kind of the outcomes of the great work that you do. When you get to that other side, when you get to that magic, what comes from that?
Yeah. So thanks for that. So it is a very rewarding, it goes all the way back to, wanting to help and serve other people from when I was a kid, and then got into medical device sales. It goes all the way back to that. But there was one situation I got connected with this group out of New Jersey. They are literally rocket scientists, as I mentioned just a moment ago, and the owner of the business, and he does work again with medical. He does work with medical device. That was my connection, but it was also with the DoD, and that's the bulk of their business, and with NASA. And he's in his mid-late 40s and said, "Andy, I've heard about your work. I've got a couple of friends that have told me about you. I was told I need to meet you. And I got to tell you, I've got a bunch of millennials here. They're highly educated. They're highly motivated. They're very creative. They're optimistic. But I just don't get them. They seem a little self-absorbed. They seem a little bit, they're kind of hard to manage. I don't know what to do about them." So he said, some of these millennials are really, all of them are in his executive team, this group of 6 in their executive team. There was one woman that was a boomer, and she was in state politics in New Jersey. I won't mention her name because you might be able to look her up. But anyway, he said, I've got to look at my executive team. So we went through and did this executive leadership team remotely over Zoom during COVID. And, the first week or two, because I always did a debriefing afterwards, he goes, "Andy, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit underwhelmed right now with this." And I said, "Jeff, just the magic's going to happen, and you're going to see it." By the 4th meeting, all the leaders, the executive leadership team, started putting their cards on the table. And there was some hard and very candid conversations with that organization. There were actually some tears shed in that conversation.
Oh, wow.
One particular executive high-level person that was a major revenue actually got into a fight with another person, a verbal thing, because it was remote, and with another individual, and it caused a big disturbance. And so I was called in to go, "Okay, can you help put that see, peel that back and figure that out. Anyway, we got through that 9-week course, and it went really well. And at the end of it, I said, "Hey, what was your favorite part about this course? What chapter?" We went through the book, 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Yeah, personally, I like chapter number 9. It's about character. And he goes, "You know what? They were all really good chapters, but the thing that was really special about this is how we got to know each other as people in the organization and not as titles." And so then they asked me, John, they said, "How can we go further with this?" And I said, "Well, what would you like to do?" He said, "We'd like to carry the same, leadership development to our whole organization." They had another 25 engineers. And so I said, "Well, let's take them through it." So I took one executive leadership person, and we set up 3 teams. So we set me and one executive leadership person on one team, and another leadership person and me on a second team, and then a third. And we carried that that leadership development Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays every week for 8 weeks through their organization. And at the end of all that, and everybody got through, and that's when the young man had groused. I thought maybe you would take us some sort of Microsoft, IT sort of stuff, because he wanted his badge on that. And why are we doing this leadership thing? But at the end of all that, he said, this was absolutely incredible through our whole organization. During the 8 weeks that we went through it, there was a kind of a rift going through the organization. There was a couple of people that thought that maybe they should have been unionized, and he was trying to get a union established in the organization, and he was trying to peel off some guys, and it was causing a huge disturbance. The executive leadership team said, because of what we learned in the executive leadership training, our executive leadership team were able to navigate these difficult disturbances that went through the organization, and we only lost the one guy and we didn't lose anybody else. And actually, our team is better off as a more cohesive unit. They had a toxic person in the organization that they kind of discovered through this process.
Wow.
And unfortunately, that person didn't want to change and didn't want to grow. So that person stepped away, but the organization came out healthier. And then the last little capstone is we finished just before Thanksgiving, and they had a little Thanksgiving video that they put together, or he put together to thank his clients in the DoD space and NASA, and it was all about the training that we had conducted and over there. And it was awesome. And when I said, "Oh my God, Jeff, that's an incredible video." He goes, "Well, Andy, you inspired it." And so that was a very rewarding thing to be able to go into an organization of rocket scientists and go over there and give them some leadership development for a group of millennials who are highly educated, highly intelligent, and want to make a difference in the world and protecting the United States of America.
Yeah.
And exploring the bounds of our universe.
Yeah.
Right. And make a contribution to that.
That's terrific. Wow. What a great story. What a great story. Andy Kalajian, folks, with Fort Leadership and Sales Consulting. So, Andy, I can't imagine that there aren't some folks that hearing this interview don't want to be in touch. So let's tell them how they can find you.
Sure. Well, you can reach me on my cell phone. If you want to text me, that would be preferred. And that number on the cell is 770-597-9005. You can find me on my website if you want to check out some of my work and reach me that way, kind of do a little investigation at Fort Leadership. That's FORT. Leadership, all one word, fortleadership.com. Or you can reach me at Andy@fortleadership.com.
Terrific. Andy Kalajian, Fort Leadership and Sales Consulting. Andy, as always, what a pleasure having you. Thanks for the great work you're doing, and congratulations on the success and transformation you're bringing about in organizations out there.
Well, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I'm grateful for what you do, and congratulations to you on number 700 plus.
Thank you for that. This is show 702, I think. But
what an awesome achievement.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm grateful for you and your support and people like you. So thank you so much, Andy.
Yes, sir.
Andy Kalajian, Fort Leadership and Sales Consulting. And folks, if you've got Well, I'll call it disengagement in your back office. If you've got back office troubles and you're spending way too much time on administrative tasks or bookkeeping or marketing or maybe presentations that you need developed, and you're doing all that yourself, really, that may be sapping the joy out of your business, and you need someone else to handle that. And that someone else, I think, ought to be Office Angels. Now, I say that because I use their services and they do terrific work, and I couldn't do what I do in my business without them. So give them a call at 678-528-0500. If you're shy, you can go to their website, officeangels.us. But my suggestion is just give them a call, explain what your issue is, and they'll send in angels that will fly in, get that work done for you, and fly out. And they'll do it on an ongoing or as needed basis, and you'll be happier when they do. And folks, Andy mentioned our 700th show. I'm almost tired thinking about it, but our 700th show that we just passed. And you know what buoys me here in the work that we do is your support, because you continue to support the show. You share the show when you've heard someone on the show that their work deserves to be celebrated and shared. And I can't imagine you haven't heard that today with Andy. So if you hear someone who you think their services could be used by someone else in your network, in your community, please share the show. Continue to follow us on social media, North Fulton BRX on all the major platforms. We're grateful for your support, and the only reason we've gotten to 700 plus shows is because of you. So thank you. Finally, I have a book coming out later this year. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Your Value, and Your Prices. If you want to know more about that, you can email me, john@johnray.co. You can also go to pricevaluejourney.com to learn more. Sign up to receive updates on the book. It'll be coming out by the end of 2023. So for my guest, Andy Kalajian, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.